Okay, this is an introduction to the last function that we have to look at called exponential function. This is a general form. It's something a to the x power plus q. But right now we're just going to start with a basic one, the first one to look at. And it's just y equals 2 to the x power. Y equals 2 to the x power. F of x equals 2 to the x power. Well, if we put in 0, anything to the 0 power is 1. So if x is 0, y is 1. If we put in 1, 2 to the first power is just 2. So 1 and 2 is a point. Here, this computer has done it kind of perfectly. But if I put a 2 in there, 2 squared is 4. Hey, it starts going up faster. There's the exponential shape. The pandemic has got us thinking about exponential curves, things that like take off like this. If we put a negative 1 in there, it does something. It turns 2 upside down. It makes it 1 over 2. So then it becomes a half. Negative 1 and a half. If we put in negative 2, 2 to the negative 2 means 1 over 2 to the power of 2, 1/4, 1/4. So this gets closer and closer. This is actually an asymptote. There's only one asymptote with exponential equations. I like to think of it as the airport that the function takes off from. The y-intercept is still found by letting x equal 0. And that's the basic shape of an exponential equation when you've got when there's a positive number here. Okay, so when it's a positive here, that's the basic shape. Now this is y equals 0. You can see a little bit later on, this thing can move up and down. That's the only thing that changes in grade 10 is just this asymptote here. So it can move up and down. So it could move, the airport could be the horizontal line that it takes off from could be +2 or -5 or something like that. But that's the basic shape of y equals 2 to the x. What happens if it's negative? Well, let's just take a look. Well, if I had -2 to the x power, well, I put in 0, everything would just become negative. It would be exactly the shape of this, 0 and 1, 1 and 2, 2 and 4, except now it's 0 and -1, 0 and -2, 1 and -2, 2 and -4. And it's -1 and -1/2, and -2 and -1/4. It's exactly the same shape, but instead of going through positive numbers up here, it takes off and goes down towards a negative number. Remember, anything to the 0 power is 1, so 2 to the 0 is 1, but this notation means then you're supposed to make it negative. Okay, well, that's when you put a negative in front. What happens if you do this? If instead of 2 to the x, we made a half to the x power. Well, a half to the first power is just a half. A half to the second power is 1/4. A half to the 0 power is 1. But a half to the -1 means you're supposed to go 1 over a half. You turn it upside down, it becomes 2. And a half to the -2 power, put it in your calculator, you'll see it becomes 4. Look at this shape. When this is a number between 0 and 1, that's the shape of the graph. And you know if it's negative, you can imagine what's going to happen to it. So that's pretty important. In exponential equations, we have to think of those numbers between 0 and a half that a could be. We don't deal with negative numbers. That gets crazy. But between 0 and 1, we can deal with fractions like a half. And that's the basic shape of it. Hey, does it make sense? A half to the 0 power, anything to the 0 power is 1. So if x is 0, it goes through 1, but there's the shape. And if you had a negative out here, hey, it would just do the same thing. This thing should just take off and bend down. And in fact, that's exactly what it does. I got a computer to graph it, but y equals -1/2 to the x power. That's the shape of it. Well, you might want to play this video a couple of times and play with a piece of paper to try and convince yourself that this stuff is true, because we've got 4 shapes to worry about with exponential graphs. We've got the basic shape right there, y equals 2 to the x, just taking off up this way, or it can take off down if it's negative. Or if it's a number between 0 and 1, it goes off backwards. And if it's negative, it goes off backwards and down. Okay, that's a little summary and introduction to exponential functions. Alrighty. Alrighty.